Big Red Junkies.
Day by day, he gets better and better. We get better and better. Team is Oh, man, woman, and child, he just turned this stadium inside out.
It has been 239 days since the news was announced that Rhule was hired. 8 months of Rhule. That's where we're at. We were talking about 6, but it's been 8 months of Rhule.
Yeah.
It's been impressive.
We kind of just talked about 6 because we're thinking beginning of the year.
Yeah, first half, second half.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
The rules.
Jesus. Those jokes haven't quite gotten exhausted, but
Yes,
they're
they
pretty
have.
fucking
Hey.
exhausted.
Here's the thing.
There's no rules about those jokes.
They've gotten exhaustive, but I still giggle every one of them.
Yeah.
So it's like...
It's not near as bad as all the frost warning shit that we got that
God.
first year.
It's about the same.
But,
No.
It's about the same.
you know, we've been
I also
excited.
had different feelings on Frost than I did with
very
Rhule,
different.
so
Very
that,
different.
That's true. Well,
You
hit-
did.
Hit
We
my,
didn't.
I said me. I
Hit
said
my
I.
hand with a ruler.
Why are we doing this?
Yeah. Jesus Christ.
This is the rule episode. We're talking about 8 months of rule.
No rules.
239 days of rule.
It's been exciting.
It sure has.
I was excited to get started talking about this because there's so much to unpack and like look at, and we've done, right now there's 8 episodes out so far since he got hired, and I don't know that we haven't done one in about a month and a half. I don't think that's come out, but we didn't talk about any of the recruiting stuff that went on during June really, and I don't remember a month as exciting as the month of June was from a recruiting perspective since Mike Riley and all that Keyshawn Johnson Jr. stuff and all that.
So before we're talking about the first 8 months of Matt Rhule. Before we get into June, which is the end of these 8 months.
You don't want to work backwards?
You want to go chronologically?
Well, my question would be,
You're putting too many rules into this.
is this what you expected?
No.
When we hired Matt Rhule and how you felt then compared to how you feel now, is this what you expected?
I remember when we got in your car and drove down to Lincoln to go watch his introductory press conference and do all that stuff. Mm-hmm. I didn't have it wasn't like in my mind like an outlay of expectations of what it was going to be. I think at that moment I was more excited about the opportunity to get an adult in the room than anything else.
Just a real coach.
Just to move on to something, because you got to remember too, we were only a week and a half removed from the Mickey Joseph saga and all the craziness that was going on with that, and our whole fan base is, Mickey's probably innocent, so we should still hire him.
Yeah, there's a lot of weird.
There's a lot of
weird
crazy
time.
shit going on.
By
Weird
the
time.
way, real quick side note, because my old brain won't remember. When we get to the whole June recruitment stuff, remind me to bring up the whole adult of the room thing again. But
I mean, my big thing then was I was excited for the Frost stuff and the recent Mickey stuff. I just wanted it all to go away and be gone. And I didn't have instant success expectations out of Matt Rhule. I did not have any expectations for him to be good in the first year because we had talked enough about, and I had, like I said, I had him as one of my 2 guys, him and Bill O'Brien from the beginning, as one of my 2 guys for this job. And the biggest reason was what they did in year 2 and 3, not year 1. Because Rhule, by all accounts, we should be expecting 0 to 2 wins this year. And
We should be expecting the exact same as what we had last year.
and worse as far as record-wise.
Worse.
Due to history of what Rhule has done.
Looking at what Rhule's done in his history where he has built programs, the first year's been atrocious. It's a tear down and a rebuild. And I think he was, there was a lot of things that he said when we were we're still getting to know him, right? We're still getting to know, every single human being, but especially every head coach has certain things that they have to say to the media. They have certain things that they have to say to their players.
Their
and
buzz phrases, buzzwords.
and all those catchphrases and things like that. But I think one of the biggest
the
things...
red meat,
Yes.
Yeah.
How do you get people excited?
Yep.
But I think one of the biggest things, we came away from that introductory press conference saying, holy shit, can this guy talk? It was amazing. It got us all fired up.
You tell he's a preacher's kid.
But yeah, but I do know that, a couple days after that luster had worn off just a little bit, we did have conversations where we questioned, is he just a great talker? Is this really going to translate? How is this going to look as we get closer to a season or a year from now? And I'll tell you what, man, looking at it 8 months later, I could not have imagined feeling this positive about where the program is, not just for this year, but looking at what he's already done for the class for next year. I cannot imagine being this positive about it.
I like how much I know about him now. Like, yeah, I knew about his record, I knew about his time at other places, and obviously what he did in the NFL, which wasn't much. But he came in and he had all these speeches, and then he went to work right away, and he was pretty public about it. And everybody knew what he was doing. Every week, everybody knew where he was, who he was recruiting, and he was not shy at all about it. And I really fucking loved that.
And not only did we know where he was every week, that's not just football related. Like, he was literally everywhere.
He got into the culture of Nebraska immediately.
But he also did. He wasn't just here.
Volleyball games, basketball games.
But I'm saying he was instantly on the recruiting trail.
Yeah,
he was doing everything.
Yeah, but again, I'm not even just talking football wise.
Yeah,
and that's one of the funny things. Like, I've actually heard people complain that he does too much and he's not focused enough on football. It's like,
people are going to complain about it.
He was at the Chris Stapleton concert with me last night.
Yeah, like, he was at the College World Series. He does all of these different things down in Lincoln as far as being at all these different sporting events, and it's like, you know what?
Well, he can only coach so many hours out of the day.
You can only watch film for so much. Like,
to hit on the Chris Stapleton concert really fast, how cool is it to see him hanging out with the athletic director, though? Like, they're hanging out in the same suite going to the Chris Stapleton concert together.
Yeah.
We talked about, after the introductory press conference, staying there, how much Trev and him seemed to have had a connection.
Yep.
And Trev talked about in his press conference about how he really felt like this was, I'm getting goosebumps now talking about it, remembering that day and how excited it was when we were listening to them talk. But just how excited he was about the way that Rhule talked about what he wanted to do. And then you've seen him do it. You've seen him have a fucking fullbacks camp and offer a kid out of it. And you've seen him bring all these different camps in. And the stuff, there's not enough being made of how humongous the effect and the impact he's having on recruiting in the state of Texas is right now. That's insane what he's doing down there.
The not just Rhule, but some of the assistant coaches.
When I say Rhule, I mean his staff in general.
But they are going down to the Texas high school coaches, like,
the
conference.
biggest high schools.
But no, they're going down to the conference to talk during the coaches' conference.
Yeah.
Like, literally, all of the Texas high school coaches will be in this one room where Nebraska coaches will be standing in front of them talking. Hello.
They did it last week. Rhule, I think it was actually on Monday.
Whatever.
Rhule was down there. Monday or Tuesday.
That's a big fucking deal for Nebraska.
Yeah.
Whether they're in the coaches' rooms and all those things at each individual school, that's great too. They're literally talking to every single Texas coach in one building at the same fucking time.
And we're getting those Texas coaches attention. And
yes.
And I mean, they already had a lot of those relationships built. Mm-hmm. And it definitely helps when you go pick from among the litter of really high-end quality coaches in the high school ranks, and you bring them onto your staff. I mean, that's making those types of moves. Those are chess moves. Those are things. I mean, yes, is he a great coach? Probably. I certainly hope he works out at the college level. We don't know anything about him though from the college standpoint. That doesn't matter. That's a chess move because guess what? Now you've got the attention of every big-time coach out there. Those coaches might make a couple $100K a year coaching high school football, and they're the big shit in Texas. But everybody knows moving up the next level is what they all want to do.
And I will tell you this. Getting the opportunity that I had during the College World Series at my tailgate to talk to Coach Wager and his son, Gage, the look in their eyes. I mean, I know that some people can sit here and be like, well, what are they supposed to say? They're going to give you the buzz. It's not about the words that people say at times. It's about the look that they give you when they're saying these things. And me sitting there talking to Coach Wager for, 45 minutes or so that I got to do that. One of the things that I told Coach Wager, I said, one of the biggest things that Nebraska fans just eat up to all holy hell is when your boss looks at all of us and says, we need to earn the right for these big time players, a Donovan Raiola or Dylan Raiola, or players like that. We need to earn the right for them to come here, and we haven't done that yet, but we will. And Coach Wager literally looks at me and goes, and we will. Dude, you want to talk about it moving?
Let me just go change my shorts quick. Jesus.
Holy shit. And I said it, and he repeated himself. He goes, and we will. Like, without a hesitation.
Yeah, I like that confidence.
And it's like...
That's head coach confidence. He's been head coach for a while.
And again, what is he going to do? Look at me and say, we're not going to...
Oh, we're going to try our hardest.
Yeah,
we definitely might.
We're going to fail at that. He also
could have said, oh, we're on our way. Well, we're going to make everybody in the conference change for us.
It wasn't the words that he said. It was how he said it and the look in, like, just straight, like, he didn't, it was, and we will. Mm-hmm. Like,
and I feel like a lot of that starts at the top.
And then after a little while, Coach Wager got sick and tired of talking to my dumbass, and he started talking to some other people that was in our group, and I was talking to his son Gage, who's going to be an incoming freshman. He's a walk-on. He's an athlete, so he's coming in as like a running back. He also does kicking at times. He's not going to be I told him. He said this. He agreed with me, and I said it to him. I go, Tristan Alvano is going to be our kicker, so sorry, but that's not your job. He's like, yeah, no, he's really good. I know. But he's coming in as an athlete, and I was just talking to him about Nebraska in general, and because he's just a Texas kid. That's, at least Coach Wager is from like the New York, Connecticut area, so he knows cold and things like that. And I talked to Gage, a little bit about weather, and so he's like, yeah, I didn't really expect stuff like that and things like that. So he's just going to get used to it, whatever. But talking to him, man, the level head that he has on his shoulders, Nebraska bringing in players like that.
It's not just players like that. Look at Garrett McGuire is a perfect example.
Yes.
Look at that and listen to that kid talk. Listen to him talk about stuff, but also look at what type of a response he's getting out of some of these players out there. He can go down to Miami, Dade County, and snipe a 4-star out of there that has an offer that was all the crystal ball projections are he's going to stay home and play at Miami. Why wouldn't he?
Yep.
Grew up in Miami down the street, and he's going to go to fucking Nebraska.
Yeah, I'm going to go hang out in cornfields and snow.
That was the biggest question mark hire that Rhule made. When he was announced, Nebraska fans ate that up. Yep. They ate it alive. They said, fuck that. What are we doing hiring a teenager, basically? What is this? He's been one of the most impressive things when it comes to the recruiting class that's been put together, especially for 24. I mean, it's crazy to me. But he sounds just like Rhule when he talks.
Yeah.
And just like what you just talked about with Wager, you get this intense engagement from them. And you get the same type of feeling of confidence and swagger about what they say. But it's not like when Frost got up and said, everybody's going to change for us. It's not, I'm the stud. I got a natty under my belt here. And I'm coming home. We're going to turn this thing around. They're going to change for us. Fuck yeah, we're going to do it. And then there was no follow-up. There was nothing.
Yeah.
I never felt the confidence in Frost and what's going on after the first loss that he had that first season. I never felt the confidence, in the recruiting and things like that, leading up to that opening kickoff that didn't end up happening and all that stuff. There was not excitement like that in this preseason.
No.
There was not even close to that. there was excitement for him being here and for us being better and getting out from under Mike Riley, and all the talk was now they're going to work out again, and things like that. But
Which they sure did.
But I mean, the thing about what Rhule's done that's most impressive to me is that he said what he was going to do, and he's literally done it. Mm-hmm. He's done it, and he's exceeded the expectations that I had for what he said to this point, anyway.
Yeah, one of the other things that I'll bring up with my conversation with Coach Wager is I talked to him about the story that I heard about Evan Cooper and Matt Rhule being down at his old school. This was before Wager was officially hired. Actually, it might have been Wager was probably like, yes, that's why I say officially hired. He was going to be hired, but Jeremiah Charles was one of Wager's old players at high school, and he's a wide receiver now for us. And I had heard a story about how Rhule and Evan Cooper were down there watching a basketball game with Jeremiah Charles, and Jeremiah Charles was just balling out. He was dunking on fools and everything
Evan
else.
Cooper takes off for the hallway.
Yeah, and Evan Cooper literally just looks over at Coach,
Whips out his iPad.
and he goes, "Are you seeing what I'm seeing?" And Rhule goes, "Yeah." And then Evan Cooper just leaves the gym and starts looking at things. And I was telling Coach Wager about that, and Wager, the whole time, Wager's just nodding his head, and he goes, "Yeah, I was standing right there. I heard it." Like, yeah, they saw what I've been seeing all season. Yeah, I mean, you get guys like that that can see the talent in players that people aren't seeing, unfortunately, and these guys are coming to Nebraska. You get guys like Evan Cooper, who is an absolute videotape psychopath, and finding these types of players. I mean, hell, we can jump to your June recruiting stuff, where one of the big things about June when we started getting a bunch of recruits committing was everybody was bitching and moaning that we're getting commits from players that don't have any offers from other Power 5 schools.
Who's this D lineman that doesn't have any stars and
Exactly.
we're picking him up? Oh, guess what he is today? He's a 4-star guy.
But
And he all of a sudden has offers from Alabama and all kinds of other schools.
yeah, maybe they have a system. Maybe they know what they're fucking doing.
Yeah.
And one of my biggest things, I think that what came from the June aspect of everybody bitching and moaning about these guys that don't have very many stars or aren't getting recruited by these big name schools, you're coming off of the Dylan Raiola saga of this 5-star kid that's getting recruited by everybody, who's also bringing along a bunch of other 4-star guys that come to the camp that are suddenly at least visiting Nebraska for whatever reason, or at least
For
talking
the first
about
time
Nebraska.
in a long-ass time.
So everybody just sees the stars. That's all they're seeing is stars, 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 5 stars, 4 stars. They just get all this nice, warm feeling inside themselves, and then all of a sudden all these guys start going somewhere else. And then they see these 2-star guys that aren't getting recruited by anybody else. They're like, wait, we just went from way up here to the top to way down here towards the bottom, and these guys are committing. What the hell's the problem? So then we get these 5 or 6 guys that commit. Now all of a sudden, since those guys committed and everybody started bitching and moaning, what have we been getting since then? All these 4-star offensive linemen and wide receivers from Miami that are supposed to be going to Miami, and all these other. Maybe there's a process to this.
Yeah.
Maybe if you just sit back and not yell and scream after every little fucking thing and just let the process go,
And maybe
just calm the fuck down.
not to shit on those guys who do the star rankings, but maybe they aren't the only guys who can judge talent with players. I mean, like we've talked about.
If they were the best at evaluating
Maybe
that
I
talent,
trust the coaches more than I trust some nerd
if they were the best
in
at
their mom's
evaluating
basement.
talent, they'd be working for a team. They
Exactly.
wouldn't be working for a website.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily care about Mel Kiper's big board. Like, it's just what it is. Like we've talked about previously, it's not necessarily about the best rated players that are out on the field. It's about those players who have the best talent that get themselves in a spot.
I mean, there's enough data out there that, for the most part, the guys that are out there that are rated are really good. But there's also guys that don't play in high-profile areas.
They fall
that
through
don't
the
play.
cracks.
Yeah, they slip through the cracks. Those things happen.
There's thousands of high school players. There's going to be guys that slip through the cracks.
The
I mean,
name,
it's just-
the name
millions of
escapes
high
me
school
of that
players.
defensive lineman.
It
but
doesn't mean that I'm crushing all of these high school these recruiting ranking guys. I'm not trying to crush every single
No.
one. It's just You are gonna miss.
Yeah,
That's fine, but
to get
it's more
back
about
to
the
it,
fans yelling and screaming that like relax.
to get back to it though, from the Rhule perspective. I mean, the big thing that he's showing to me is exactly what I said though. It's he said what he was going to do, but he's done it. And when you have a June like we had as far as recruiting goes, it was like, oh, we picked up a couple nice pieces here and there. And then all of a sudden you look back over the last 3 weeks, it's like, well, shit, we picked up like 5 4-star guys. We picked up a couple guys that everybody bitched about and thought were nothing. And then lo and behold, 2 weeks later, they're getting actual rivals rankings and things like that, oh, I didn't know that. And now, oh, they accepted an offer at a camp from Nebraska, and 2 days later, they have 10 or 12 extra D1 offers.
Yep.
And some of them are from the big boys. You're seeing those things. I think the thing that you see from that is, people at some of those big boy schools are noticing what Nebraska's staff is doing, and they're respecting it, which I think is pretty damn cool because that hasn't happened in a while.
And I think if we're successful, that will happen even more as the years go on. As far as they'll be like, what's Nebraska doing? How are they finding these guys falling through the cracks?
But
That
you
sort of
notice
stuff.
those things. You notice those. I mean, Nebraska wasn't always bringing, in the 90s, we weren't bringing in the highest touted recruits across the country all the time.
They were better than
Then they've
people
been recently.
No, but they were better than people. I agree with you, but I used to be like, Nebraska didn't recruit like super high and we won all these. They were recruiting like top 10 classes. It's just different back then.
It was. There was a lot of,
Like Tommy Frazier was a high level recruit.
and I get that.
Grant
but-
Wistrom was a high level. There were.
Yeah. But there was also a lot more local and regional guys on those teams
Yeah.
than there's been for the last recent while. And we're seeing that now. We're seeing that come back again. We've how many guys did we take it for 2023 to turn over the roster just to get going?
A lot.
A ton of dudes within basically a 200-mile radius. And then you turn around and look at what happened in 24, the class so far that we've built. Yeah, sure, we miss on Dylan Raiola, who, like we said, because of the transfer portal,
So did
that might only be a one-year miss.
So did 50 or 60 other teams.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So did 132 other
Those
teams.
things happen. But then,
legitimate
but then
teams.
Yeah, I know.
you instantly see a pivot in 3 days. Dylan Raiola committed to Georgia. 3 days later, Danny Kaling flips his commit from Missouri to Nebraska.
And that doesn't happen in 3 days.
I'm sorry, but has anybody heard this kid talk?
Yeah.
He sounds like he's on the coaching staff. He doesn't sound like he's one of the players or for that matter, going to be a senior in high school this year. He's doing radio interviews, and he's talking about talent scout type stuff. He's talking about what else we need to fill out our roster for next year. He doesn't sound like a high school senior, right, regardless of what he's studying. He definitely doesn't sound like a high school senior who's going to go play college football. Mm-hmm. It's extremely impressive. It's one of those, hey, maybe you're Garrett McGuire and you're not going to be a great athlete, but you're going to be on the coaching staff. I don't know, because he also went out and finished in the top 11 for the Elite 11 Academy.
Yeah.
But he's gone on to help us recruit all this stuff. And then all of a sudden this week you hear the number one offensive tackle in the country has put off his commitment and wants to visit Nebraska this fall.
The number one running back in the country put us in our top 8.
Yeah. I mean, these things are, get goosebumps again. These things it's all momentum builders. And if he tacks on a win or two this year that nobody expected, all of a sudden those lights start to flash a little bit brighter and the possibility of, hey, 24-25, do you want to be part of that first 10-win Nebraska team in the last decade and a half? Like, let's go.
So going towards that part that you talked about, having an actual adult in the room. That's one of the things, like with those Bellevue West recruits, not just the quarterback, the wide receivers that committed. They literally said that. Like the parents said.
The coaches at Bell West said that.
The coach at Bell West said, Nebraska has an adult recruiting these guys. These players said specifically.
And he's 23.
What?
He said, I'm making a joke about the fact that the wide receivers that got recruited.
Oh.
That's what I said. Yeah, he's an adult and he's 23.
that Nebraska was not just not on their radar. They were a non-factor, non-thought 6 months ago. I mean, when they committed,
They weren't even on Frozone's radar.
Yeah, they were. There was no option one way or the other, vice versa. Nebraska basically didn't even exist to these people. And Rhule and this staff comes in, and they completely flip these guys in a matter of weeks. And it's that sort of mentality and, again, adult in the room mentality of this coaching staff, not just Rhule, but from the top down. These guys know what the fuck they're doing. There's no guarantee that they're going to be successful. We've talked about it multiple times. As much as we want to, go over these last 8 months and be as happy as we are with what's going on, we ultimately know that the wins and loss record is what's going to decide everything. But at the same time, talking about what's gone on over the last 8 months, can it get any better?
I don't know how it can. I mean, if we had landed Dylan Raiola,
okay,
that's about the only way that I see anything over the last 8 months going better than it has.
But just because we didn't doesn't mean it's horrible.
No, that's not what I mean.
I didn't mean that that's how you were going. I'm just simply...
When it comes to best ways I could have imagined things going, that was number one, this is number two.
Yeah.
Because you pivot and you wind up still building a class for 24 that's almost done.
Not getting Dylan Raiola as a Nebraska program that hasn't made a bowl game in 5 years isn't a failure.
Being close.
But that's
being in the running.
But that's what I'm saying.
What?
Not getting him is not a failure. That's just
if you're
as a team that's not very good.
If you're simply an outsider and you look at this and you go, maybe you don't know who his dad is, you go, why the fuck is he visiting Nebraska?
Yeah.
There's zero reason he should have even been interested.
No.
Why? I don't even know how to spell Nebraska. What the fuck are you talking about?
Can't even find Nebraska on a map.
Yeah, why would he be here? The fact that we even had a shot, the fact that he was making appearances at sideline at basketball games, doing what? He did 3 official visits where he brought in giant hauls of dudes. It's all good stuff. And the thing about it is, like we've talked about before, the transfer portal, sure, maybe every single one of them went somewhere else this year. You think all of them don't remember the visit that they had back here? You think they didn't all sign at Georgia?
The thing is, they didn't all go somewhere. I mean, we got some of the best transfer portal guys, MJ Sherman, Eric Gilbert.
No. I'm talking about the ones
Chief Borders.
The guys that visited, the recruits that visited with Dylan Raiola.
Oh,
I'm talking about all those guys.
Okay, yeah.
They might go somewhere else.
I'm going to get to the transfer portal.
I thought you were talking in general with the transfer portal.
What I'm talking about in general, those guys didn't all go follow him to Georgia. Every single one of them didn't go to Georgia. And you know what? You think they didn't remember their Nebraska visit? You think a year from now, if they're not happy wherever the hell they signed, they're not going to be thinking about,
Well, and we talked about it in our Dylan Raiola basically show a couple shows ago. It's not just them specifically that came here to visit. They're going to go back home and talk to those second level, really good Division I players, talented players, and say, you need to
Bro, you got to check out Nebraska.
Exactly. It's not just those guys.
You might not be able to come with me to Alabama, but you should go to Nebraska because that was my
Absolutely.
close second choice.
Absolutely. It's that sort of conversation that has happened with these guys that came and visited here that went back home and talked to other players.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, you bring up the transfer portal. I think that was the first kind of big show for what Rhule has done in the last 8 months. Getting some of the guys in that he got in, it seemed almost like he had a pipeline coming straight out of Georgia. Hey, you're not happy in Athens? It's Lincoln, Nebraska's your next stop. Let's go. That's what it felt like anyway, because you bring in MJ Sherman, I know a lot of people, for some weird reason, the National College Podcast guys are like, they're all doing their like, oh, who's the most important players on these different teams? And I've watched 3 of them this week where they all put Eric Gilbert, or they're all calling him Eric Gilbert, in their top 5 most important players for 2023 for Matt Rhule. And I don't see it. I haven't. He hasn't even gotten a waiver yet, which I get that can.
Yeah.
That's most likely not going to happen until the season starts, or until like the first week of the season. But for them all to be putting him in there, and I haven't seen Fedoni's name on anything. And yeah, he was super, super hot for that couple weeks, and then we haven't heard anything about him.
It's because Gilbert came from Georgia.
And I get it.
That's the rub that he's getting.
He was a super, super high-end recruit and all this stuff, but he's also
so
not
is
done
Fedoni.
anything. Yeah, but Gilbert's not done anything.
No.
He's been two different stops.
Gilbert's getting the rub of Georgia.
Yeah, it is what it is. But I think him bringing in some of those higher profile transfers and kind of kicking that door open of, look, you might not be happy there. You might not be happy in the SEC. Come up here. Let's check it out. Come help me rebuild because you're going to get a chance to step on the field and play right away. I don't see him being able to sustain that type of success because he's not going to need to turn the roster over the way that he has.
Well, and he's already said he doesn't want to build it through the transfer portal. He wants to build it through high school, but right now he has to get players from the transfer portal.
Yeah.
So the whole purpose isn't to just be a transfer portal program. The purpose is to be a high school program or high school, production program. So
The transfer portal after a couple of years is more like the cherry on top.
yeah,
Well, it should just be, hey, there wasn't a player available that we needed for this class. We're going to have to go get a transfer guy next year.
Doesn't have to be have to. It could
you
be.
want it to have it be additions, not necessities.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, hey, you want to come add to this team? You want to come win some shit? Come win some shit.
Yeah.
At least that's. I really hope that that's where we're at in 3 or 4 years. It's not. We need to
I don't know if
fill
it'll be
this
that long with
spot.
their recruiting.
We need to fill this spot. Let's see what schools have too many players in this position. It's. Hey, we got 3 great guys. You want to come compete against them?
Yeah.
You want to come maybe win some shit?
I think one of the other big things that
And we're also in Nebraska. We have some good NIL. You want to make some money on
you
top
want
of
to make
it?
some money.
You want to win some shit and get some dough?
I think another thing that's not really being talked about by anybody at all is the off the field stuff that he's doing with the players, the camaraderie that he's building in the athletic department in general, making his players. I don't know if he's making them or not, or if it's more of a, hey, I'm going to go do this. You should come with me. Go and support the. He showed up with what? It was 30 or 40 guys that went and watched the women's college basketball games, the last couple of them.
Yeah.
He's going to support the bowling team, like doing all this stuff. And like we talked about, he's out amongst the community. He's doing all these other things. He just seems to be like, it's a cultural revival, not just for the football team, but for the athletic department, for the university. It sounds like for the freaking town of Lincoln. I mean, the guy just kind of spreads it wherever he goes, and it's not just about football. It's about
That's one of
love
the
your common man, a rising tide raises all ships, that sort of a thing.
It's one of the other things that I talked with Coach Wager about. I think at the time that I saw him, it was the first Sunday of the College World Series, so it was Father's Day. I think it was the second or third week of their top 10% they released it. I think just recently they released their week 6. And I asked him, I said, what's the deal with this, top 10% thing? And he talked to me about it. He's like, it's what you're doing, not just in the classroom stuff and the on the field stuff is cool, but it's what some of these guys are doing with building up their community, being out and about, doing things with other programs like you talked about in the university.
Chief Borders is out here running little kids camps like he's a professional athlete.
Yeah. So if you are on social media and you see it, whether it's on Facebook or Twitter or wherever else they post it up, and you see that list, I think, like I said, I think they just put out week 6 of their top 10%, and they put up pictures of all the guys that are in their top 10%. That's a big fucking deal that some of these guys are on it. Some of these guys, if you look through the 6 weeks, some of them are on it, some of it are off it, depending on the week that it is. Some of the guys that I see
one that was
on
a
all the time.
composite score too. Like how many times have you made the list?
Oh, I haven't seen that one.
Yeah.
But I think some of the things that are important are guys like Jeff Sims are on it every week, at least that I've seen.
The guys that you want to be your leaders.
And I said that to Coach Wager. I said, one of my big things, it was either week 2 or week 3 that I saw him on it, or I saw shortly before I talked to Coach Wager, was I talked to him about some of the new guys that are on this list. Like MJ Sherman was on this list. Now, granted, week 6, MJ Sherman was not on the top 10. So I don't know what happened, but
maybe he had a cold this week.
Whatever.
I had a cold this week.
But
Maybe there's a little more competition for that top 10 spot.
yeah, Jeff Sims has been on the list a lot. I don't know that he's been on it every time, but he's been on it a lot. And I told him, I said, one of the big things that I look at is these new guys that are clearly buying into their new, surroundings. And some of these new guys that are going to play prominent roles for this team being on this top 10% list. To me, I see that, and that's a big thing. And again, Coach Wager the whole time, he's just nodding his head. Like, yes, these are the guys that they're bringing in.
Yeah.
This is part of the process of, do you want to come here? These are the parameters of people that we want. This is what we look for. Are you willing to do these sort of things? If you're not, best of luck to you at your next endeavor, but that doesn't work here. This is what works here. This is what we expect of you. If you're not willing to do that, hey, good luck. But otherwise, let's roll. Like,
how interesting do you find it that it seems like the coaching staff bought in so quickly and so heavily on Jeff Sims, even though they were trying to keep Casey Thompson around, they bought in so quickly and so heavily on Jeff Sims and have made him such maybe it's all of his own doing, I don't know, but it seems like they instantly shoved him into a leadership role. You're doing this. This is what needs to happen, which I'm a firm believer in.
I don't think they shoved
has
into
to be
him
a leader
without knowing that he would be able to do it. But
no, I don't mean anything like that. But I mean, maybe this is all driven by him just behind the scenes. But I've always believed it doesn't matter what level of football it is, the quarterback has to be a major leader on that team.
I agree.
It looks so different than what happened last year when we saw Adrian Martinez depart for Kansas State. Basically get told, hey, we're going to bring in a transfer. Casey Thompson's going to come in. But then you saw it was crickets. It was quiet. And as we headed into the season, it's Casey Thompson hasn't been here long enough to be a captain. And nobody knew anything about him or the way he interacted with the team because that's all we ever heard. Well, he hasn't been here long enough to earn captain status. Okay. And then I remember early show last year, you were questioning, I'm kind of wondering about his leadership. I'm wondering if he's any of that stuff. And I felt like by the end of the season, he was about the only goddamn person out there that was showing leadership on a daily basis.
Yep.
And so it's interesting to me to see a guy like that leave only because he's seen himself essentially be supplanted by a new guy coming in the same type of a situation that he just got done going through. And I wonder to myself, has Jeff Sims not been here long enough to be a captain? Is the way that they're running the program now really all going to be based on whether or not you were here last year and the year before?
It's also new leadership at the top, though, too.
It is.
As far as how they, not us, but they are going to look at who is a captain or a leader or anything else like that. You also don't have to be a captain to be a leader. I mean, Sue was...
Casey Thompson showed that last year.
Yeah.
Well, and there's only so many captain spots.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, I think, especially at the quarterback
and
position...
And some guys are lead by example and not lead by words.
There's not one way to lead, for sure.
Exactly.
But it's, especially at the quarterback position, you already know that you're a leader. You have half of the team. Well, if you aren't, you're not succeeding.
Yeah.
And so you have half of the team that you are the charge of. Like, he came in knowing that he was going to be a leader. Now it's just put that on him. Don't sit there and question him. You already know he's your guy. Back him.
And Sims has been the guy.
That's what I mean. You already know he's going to be your guy. There's no reason to be like, well, let's see if he can lead.
Yeah.
No, he's already your leader.
Yeah.
Empower him. And that's what they're doing.
So, like, there's a difference where, like, Casey Thompson, he played like 9 games at Texas before he came here, but he wasn't. It was also off and on through injury and all those things. So you could say we don't know if he's going to be a leader because he hasn't fully done it yet. Jeff Sims did it for 3 years. Sure. So granted, they weren't successful years. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's all on Jeff Sims as to why Georgia Tech was not successful.
He was also at Georgia Tech.
That, and he had been injured off and on the last 2 years. All those things. But he was the leader of that team for 3 years. When he was able to be on the field, he was the leader of that team for 3 years. That's not questionable. That's just the way it is. So there were questions with Casey Thompson because he had not been that for a long enough period of time. I don't know. Now, what the level of leader Jeff Sims can be, I don't know. But the fact that he has been in the role as a leader, he has been. So at least he knows what he needs to do, where the standard is, all of those things as far as being a leader. How successful it'll be, I don't know.
Culturally, it doesn't seem like the expectation or the need for the leadership is even close to the same as what it was with our last coaching staff.
Correct.
Our last coaching staff, to me, gave this...
We needed a leader because we didn't have one in the coaching staff.
Well, it just gave you this vibe of, we are the coaches, you are the players. You need your captains and your leaders because that's who's going to lead you.
Yep.
This feels like Grandpa Matt Rhule is sitting up here, and he's got his kids that are his assistant coaches, and they've just got the whole fucking team wrapped in this giant bear hug. We're all one family, and we're all going to do it this way, and we're all going to talk the same way and walk the same way.
What a weird way to take that take. I see what you're saying, but I don't like how it made me feel.
It just doesn't feel like it doesn't feel like the weight of the world is on the quarterback's shoulders. It doesn't feel like the weight of the world is on, Garrett Nelson last year. It seemed like he was the only one that every week you could look to and just be like, well, he's the leader of the defense.
Yeah.
It's clear to see.
Yeah.
You could look at Garrett Wilson, as much of a weirdo as he was and all those other things, and say he clearly wants to win more than anybody else on that team.
Yeah, including the entire fucking coaching staff.
Yeah.
You don't feel that from anybody. I don't feel like weird standouts like that. I also don't feel like anybody's out in the cold.
Mm-hmm. Or on their own at all.
That's what I mean. It just doesn't seem like... I mean, I was thinking about this yesterday. The only coach that I haven't gotten like a real super solid vibe from, and it's probably just because he doesn't do social media, is Tony White.
Yeah.
Every time he talks, every time I've seen him talk publicly, I like everything he says. He doesn't seem to quite have that same, this is my family, this is my lifeblood vibe about him that you get from...
He's very much business, like...
Yes.
Tunnel vision. My hands are right here covering my eyes, not just covering the sides of my eyes.
Hey, every great team needs an accountant.
No, and I'm not judging that. I'm just saying he is very much tunnel focused. This is my job. This is what I'm going to do. This is what's happening. I'm going to fucking do it.
I'm also not saying sunshine, rainbows, big grandpa hugs are everything that needs to be happening with this team. I'm not trying
Matt
to...
Rhule isn't that old.
I know. I'm just talking about,
I just have to say this because you brought up the whole grandpa thing and the kids. What I envisioned is my grandpa, the guy that I got tattooed on my arm here, the last handful of Christmases at his house before he moved into his hospice rooms. Every Christmas Eve when we would go over to his house and as a big family, he would literally sit in his chair in the middle of the room. Seriously, in the middle of the room. He would move his chair to be in the middle, and he would just sit there, and he would look around. And the first couple of times, I'd be like, Grandpa, what are you doing?
this all came out of my nutsack.
That's Jesus fucking Christ.
That's basically what he said. Cause
Were you there? I didn't even see
What are you doing? Enjoying my
this is what he does. He puts his arms out like he's like Jesus, like, come to me. And he goes, this is what I created.
It's true, though.
And it's just like, this is all because of me. Like, I did this. And it was just everybody, and nobody was like, it's not like everybody was sitting in a circle just staring at him. We were all just talking. We were all having our own conversations. We were all eating. Some of us were eating. Some of us were drinking shots of Jaeger, whatever else. And he's just sitting there goes, this is what I created. He's the head of the table.
Yeah.
And that's what Matt Rhule is, He's
God
the head
damn
of the
it,
table.
he is Grandpa Rule. Fuck.
See, it was a good analogy.
It was.
I told you.
Fuck you for your good analogy.
But that's the
At least
shit.
it was a good analogy for me because I was relating to that. So, yeah.
Our whole point of this show was to talk about the first eight months of Rhule, and that's ultimately what I've gotten out of it, is that he has a completely different way of going about it than I've ever seen at Nebraska, hands down. Whether it's going to work, we still don't fucking know because you got to put the wins and losses up there. But as of right now, I don't think I could be more excited about what the rest of the year looks like, and especially getting 42 days down the road here to the first football game.
I said it to end one of our previous shows a handful of shows ago. The days of Nebraska being a joke are over with Matt. I believe with Matt Rhule. What the ceiling is, I don't know. I hope for the highest ceiling in the world with him. I don't know what the ceiling is. I just know that, and these last 8 months have solidified it for me. The future of Nebraska is bright, and we are no longer a laughingstock in college football.
Feels fucking good.
And this may be the most unbelievable night in Cornhusker football history.